There comes a time when you have to move on. The sands of time are shifting and the movement seems right under our feet. Things are wearing out, including me and my patience. The weather is changing. The end may be near. It's time to do something different. Anything. Back in 21, Angel and I have found a beautiful piece of land in southeast Kentucky. The 2021 election just wrapped up and 2021 New Year rolled in. The political landscape seemed to have culminated into a slippery mess of lies, deceit, and power struggles. It was wintertime and Julia, our daughter, called from Fort Lee, Virginia. She had recently graduated high school, but because of COVID, she never had a real graduation ceremony from high school. She had signed up for the National Guard because she knew it would be fiscally responsible for her to be able to pay her college debt. Not yet realizing she had also received a full ride of scholarship to Ohio State University. The winds blowing through eastern foothills of Appalachia, Virginia, and her voice on the phone said maybe we should look at buying some land. Sitting at Fort Lee, I questioned why Maine, as she suggested. Well, Virginia is nice too, she said. We discussed the implication of inflation if the spending by our government didn't get under control with the new administration. We knew now it wasn't going to be reined in at any time soon. Keeping money in the bank wasn't a good solution. Land, on the other hand, is a better investment during times of high inflation. The phone call ended, and it got us thinking, what if everything fell apart? What if it didn't? Either way, having land is a good solution, but it's expensive, and what if we are in a bubble like 2007? I did an internet search and found several inexpensive parcels of land in Kentucky. The next week we had an appointment with a realtor to see if land really could be at such a low price. I hadn't been on a trip in years. In fact, I had been somewhat afraid to travel after having seizures for nearly 20 years. By the grace of God, I haven't had one since 2017. 3 years at this point in time. I finally felt comfortable to travel once again, and it was freeing. The ice had melted on my frozen mind that prohibited me from doing things that I had been wanting to do for years. We went down one weekend and met with a realtor. It had to be a short trip because the newspaper had to get done on Monday. But that trip, that quick, long trip on I-75, changed everything. And what transpired wrote the first chapter in the next book of our life. Our kids are now grown, with the last one graduated. The only thing really holding us here is church and work, and that is just fine for now. Could this be real? Are we capable of change at our age? We came home with lots of questions and no answers. Only big dreams, big prayers, and asking God for direction. Angel said, let's wait a week and see if something changes in how we feel about this. We did. The next Sunday, 1 week later from coming here, we discussed it again. The pros far outweighed the cons, or at least ones we were willing to think of. I emailed an offer to the realtor. It was getting scary. Is this what the Israelites thought? Is this why they had to stay for 40 years wandering in the desert? Would we do the same thing and melt before our fears, losing the promised land? Absolutely not. I spent many of summers growing up at the Hirschtown Reservoir. I remember when it opened to the public because I was there every day that summer. My first business just happened to be selling worms to the fishermen who forgot to bring bait. I was a kid who grew up in the country. My parents camped, and I loved every minute of Brown County State Park. Not quite mountains, but for a kid from the Indiana Flatlands, it seemed like Mount Everest. At that age, of 5 to 10 years old, I knew what I wanted in life. It was to be a park ranger at the Brown County State Park in Nashville, Indiana. To be outdoors every day in the trees, in the streams, the rocks and the creeks. Then I grew up. I bought my first computer as a freshman in high school and knew that's what I wanted to do. MS-DOS. What could be better than sitting in front of the amber glowing screens and getting a device to do something for you? Those details are for another story. But needless to say, I've been a slave to computers ever since. Not that it's bad, but being in front of the screen, even as I type this, does not have the desire as being out in nature. I didn't figure we would hear back anytime soon, as it was in the names of 4 people, but lo and behold, the realtor responded before the end of the evening. There was not even negotiations. The owners, he said yes. I could not believe it could be this easy. The Lord was handing this to us. It was like Moses telling the people to go into the promised land. The Lord your God is giving you the inheritance that was promised to Abraham. Not only do I get to be a park ranger, but I get to own my own park. Not in the foothills of Indiana, but actual mountains of Appalachia. God must have something big planned for us. I can't see the future for certain, but I know who holds that future. For 3 years, we have been working to know the land, the good, the bad, and the beaver dams. We love it. It's heaven on earth, and we want to share it with others. We have plans that will be a blessing to others, to bless their families, their marriages, and Jesus Christ our Lord. I look to the horizon, and I don't see the sun setting. Instead, I see the morning light streaming across the mountain peaks just before the light of day. We are now entering our next phase. This winter, back on New Year's Day, I started construction in Ohio of our first structure, not counting our gate, of course. We are building an RV shelter. Last year in February or March, we were blessed with getting an inexpensive fifth wheel that needed some work. That work is nearly complete, but we want to move it to our future site. We can have a place to stay. This is our next step. Come with us. Watch our adventures.